Can I just check how you are with injuries and suspensions ahead of this game, please?
Yeah, suspensions. So Ganna and Jared, injuries. Youngie, Seamus won't be right for this one. We're hoping for a quick recovery from them too. Keno has trained today, so as long as there's no reaction, he'd be back in the thinking. I'm trying to think of else. Me quite a bit of a niggle, but I think he'd be okay. Dom's fine. I'm trying to think who else. We've got a few. But they should. Deli's still on the grass with us, but just going back through the motions to get back involved. And Andre's, he's been training with us for a few weeks now. He needs 90 minutes. We're hoping he gets that tomorrow.
I'm guessing it's a time after 3 successive wins that everybody wants to play at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, a bit unlucky with the suspensions and injuries, but there's a real feel-good factor you can imagine amongst the team. The work ethic, the demand, but also some of the quality has been on show, and we've got to do that again.
Are you, as a former central defender, are you just as impressed and as happy with 3 clean sheets as well as the wins?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about me being a defender. I think, the clean sheet idea is a basis to work from, and it was something, I felt was important for this side. I felt it was last season and this season, and working with the group and finding a format that can work both in and out of possession. But no, if you can keep clean sheets, you've obviously increased your chance of doing well.
And going back to the old club where you spent nearly a decade, what on earth is that going to be like?
I'm not really. People know me a long time, people who know me in football. I don't really go in for all that sort of stuff. There's a massive respect there, quite obviously, because my time there. And I always had a big respect and a big connection with the people and the fans and all that because of my time and because of the team's time and what was achieved there. But to be honest, the whistle blows. I want to win. I want to win on behalf of Everton.
No sentiment at all.
No. Not for that. Not for when the whistle blows. No, because that's work time. That's what I'm in the game for, is to win. But no, before and after, I'm hopefully going to bump into some old faces and people that. There's been a lot of change there, but there's people I still know there, so it'd be nice to see them.
And in terms of that moment,
pop in my pub, obviously. Have a couple of pints for the game with Justine, obviously, because everyone thinks that it's mine. It's not.
Well, you're still highly regarded in those parts, and I would think there's a fair chance, maybe a unique moment, maybe all 4 sides of the stadium might give you a round of applause on Saturday.
Well, that's up to them. We'll see. I don't expect anything of anyone, but I think I earned the right with the Burnley fans, and I think I'm beginning to earn the right with the Evertonians. I think it takes time. I've always believed that. I'm willing to earn it. I'm willing to put the hard yards in myself. I don't just ask it of the team. We'll wait and see.
And a lot's changed since you were last at Turf Moor. What do you make of the way? They had a fabulous season last year, but just not clicking at the moment.
Well, it's tough. They as you rightly said, fantastic season last season. I saw Vincent at one of the LMA commend him on the work that they'd done. Going into this season, it's difficult. They spent money, but you've got to. How do you buy the players who are game ready for the Premier League? It's not easy. Then you've got to develop. So then you're developing players to be ready for the Premier League. Some of the old players were there, a bit more experienced, who were there from my time, Josh and Charlie and Corky and Jay and people like that. But a lot of new players, and then you've got to mould it, you've got to form it, you've got to produce a team that can win, and you've stepped up to the Premier League. It's a massive challenge for anyone going up, and I'm told more so from colleagues around the game who are in the Championship that the gap's got bigger. So therefore, if it's got bigger, it's even harder to make that jump. So, I think they're a work in progress, and I think the manager speaks clearly about that. They changed their style slightly. It might have just been for the Brighton game, a lot more back to front, quicker, 4-4-2-ish, a lot more of that side of the game. Maybe that's a change for the future. We'll have to wait and see. But adapting to the Premier League is a challenge for everyone.
And lingering still in the background is the appeal process about the deduction. A lot of people will have seen the correlation between the improvement in the performances and the wins and the appeal process. Do you sense that link, or is that just a red herring at this stage?
It's not a red herring, but I just think that the team was operating well before that. I said early season we didn't get a win in the early games, but I thought some of the performances were excellent. We transferred that into winning performances. Then the news of the 10 points, and then other than the Man United game, which I thought we played very well in that, to be honest, we've gone on and won 3 and looked like a team, a competitive team. But the work was already getting done. I was pretty happy with the way the team were going before the 10-point situation. What it has done, I think, is enhanced it with our own supporters, enhanced the feel of the club. I think everyone was shocked, and I think not just Evertonians, not just us. I think the greater good of football were all shocked. we'll have to wait and see what the appeal brings. But to be clear on it with the players, I said, right, we've got to act as if that's it. You know, it's a done deal. So our focus is challenge ourselves now, no excuses. Let's imagine it's done for now. And then anything that comes our way, hopefully, would be a bonus if there is anything coming our way.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. We'll go to Julia at Reading, Merseyside.
Excuse me.
Hey, Sean.
Hey.
The challenge of Chelsea and Newcastle and the performances that were put in, obviously Burnley, we know as you look at the table, second from bottom. How do you ensure this week that there's no complacency, or is the mood around the camp ensuring that in itself?
Well, I hope that the idea of complacency, I would hope the players, without any influence of mine over the last couple of seasons, will know that you can't, you have to respect everything in the Premier League, and I think that's growing here. So certainly the idea of complacency should be off the table. I think it is. I think the players are continually learning, everything you have to do to win games in the Premier League. They got to know it, by the way. We just really, I think, bring in a more defined awareness to them. All the details of a game, all the details of a performance, and I think we're delivering that better and better. And then the underbelly of the performance is the hard yards, the work that the team are willing to put in, and that's been on show. So you mix that with good organisation and quality, then you've got a chance in every game. You've certainly got a chance to be competitive in the Premier League, and that's what we're looking to be.
You talk about hard work. Lewis Dobbin has played for the under-21s quite a lot. I know he's been working hard in training. You've said that before. He got his goal, and I think you could see what it meant to him. But also the players around him, the senior players, were celebrating with him. How has he been this week, and how has that kind of seen him grow a little bit more in training, in his confidence?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it for him. I loved the reaction from the team and the fans alike. When I talk about that kind of bond with the fans, I think moments like that add on to that bond, and I think it was an authentic moment for the team, the way they all responded to his goal. Good lad, great lad, in fact, and he's learning all the time. Frustrated by, he wants to play, he wants to be part of it. Frustrated by not getting as many minutes as he'd like, which other players are as well. But he's also got that nice, healthy respect for the fact of how the team are going, who's playing, etc., etc. But for him to come on and a fine goal as well, a fine finish, what a first goal for him.
Is it harder for younger players in the squad when you find yourself in a situation and it's been through no fault of your own performances this time, battling at the bottom of the table? So is it harder to give younger players that opportunity in games because you maybe want them to use some of the senior players that are used to that pressure? And how do you go about that, managing that week to week?
A lot of it is taking all the kind of the inference that you sometimes put in yourself. And just viewing it as it is. Who's training well? Who's fit? Obviously, who's fit? Who's training well? Who's playing well? Who's looking sharp? Both if they're in the starting 11, if they're not. And really pushing aside some of the kind of barriers that can get in the way. So we've been open-minded with the young players here. Obviously with Jared coming in, Jimmy that continually, Jimmy Garner, that is, adding to his performance levels. Pato, he's slowly but surely improving, and then Lewis as well. So, there's just a few, but there's a nice feel about what that group are doing and how they're maturing into the Everton Football Club and team.
Yeah, and in your career, you've managed in Europe, you've been at the wrong end of the table in those, you've managed in lots of different scenarios. Have you ever managed in anything of an atmosphere like it is right now? Because it does feel that everything has come together. The fans are with the players, you're with the players. It feels like everything's pulled together. Have you ever experienced an atmosphere like this?
Excuse me. Well, I think we built a similar thing at Burnley, but not in the same size of the club. The Forum. I mean, Goodison, sort of 40,000 there. You know what it's, or you certainly know what it's like. It feels like an intense. It feels like a cauldron. The fans are right there for you, and I think we've reconnected in a very authentic way, and I'm very, very pleased with that. I think the fans are playing their part, of course. The players are playing their part. And I mentioned when I got here, as the marvel of the past, but then bringing a modern future. But one of the marvels was the connection, the belief in the shirt, the belief in the fans, the belief in the club, and I think that's on show. Add in the quality, add in some of the performance levels of individuals, add in the fact that we're getting the details right more often now, then, that's a really good mixture.
Thanks, Julia. We'll go to Andy at the Press Association.
Speaking there about Goodison and the
Andy,
great
sorry.
atmosphere, your away form has also been fairly good, yeah, so what do you put that down to?
Well, there was a lot of noise when I first got it about lots of things, but one of the many versions of it was about the away performances and the away points. We certainly reflect on that and looked at how we could change things. And then more at home, people are asking me recently, about how could we change the home form? It was on form. The form was good. It's winning. And that really comes down to taking your chances. We created a lot. We have done in these games recently, and we've taken them and we've kept clean sheets. So, that's the mixture every football manager and every player should want. And we've got to keep working hard to get that to continue.
Thanks, Andy. We'll go to John to the Premier League.
Sean, Burnley have picked up half of their total season's points tally in their last 3 games. Have you noticed a recent improvement in performance, or is this simply the ebbs and flows of the Premier League, and what kind of game do you expect to see from them? Yeah,
it can be. I think they had the big result against Sheffield United, sending off as well, but they certainly capitalised on it. Going to the next one, don't get a win, then going to the next one, get a draw. They changed a bit for the Brighton game, so that'll be interesting to see if they stick with that format or go back to a more open format. The challenge of the Premier League is a constant. That's the thing. Teams can have ups and downs and all the rest of it, but it's a constant thing, and that's why I endlessly talk about consistency of performance, week to week and within a game. Consistency of the minutes within a game, and finding consistency as individuals. And the only way of doing that, in my belief, is on the training field. If we get that consistency right, it goes naturally into a performance. And I think that's been the biggest thing for me. So the ups and downs of a Premier League season can happen to most, not all, but to most. And you've got to deal with it, and you've got to make sense of it, and you've got to keep searching for what changes it and what makes it right.
You mentioned the word consistency. One player who seems to have started to find that in particular is Abdoulaye Doucouré. He'd scored 4 Premier League goals in 69 games under different managers. He's since scored 11 goals in 31 under yourself. How are you finding that you're able to get the best out of him?
I think we've given him a bit of freedom. We do have some tactical sort of understanding from him, but a lot of it is the freedom. I think there's been a belief since I walked in from myself to him. And I think he's adapted fantastically well. He's taken it on. It's not always about the coach and managers. The manager and coaches. It's not always about that. It's about them. He wasn't in the situation that he wanted to be when we got here. We thrust him back into the side, and he's never really looked back. Amongst a number of others, I've been very pleased with many mentalities, not just his. But as you say, he has got an eye for goal. I always liked him as a player anyway, and he's showing that.
And finally, from me, you talked about Lewis Dobbin a little bit earlier on. That means his goal and Everton's sub has come on and scored in the last 2 games. What does that emphasise for you, and how difficult is it to maintain motivation from absolutely every single player that's perhaps not even starting games? Yeah,
one of the biggest respects I've had in football as a manager is the people who are not always starting, to respect them and how they're training. I commended them on it just literally last week before the game. And then people affected it again, and this week will affect it again because of suspensions and injuries and that sort of thing. So, I always impress upon the group how important the people who are on the periphery, who are not maybe playing at one given time, how important their work is and how important they look after themselves. And I have a massive respect for the people who are not playing, not just the players who are playing.
Thanks, John. So we'll go to work.
Just touching on that, Sean, obviously you are enforced with a change at centre-half. Michael Keane and Ben Godfrey, the 2 who look like they might come in. How have they looked in training?
Yeah, fine, they look after themselves, and that's if we play with 2, don't forget. So, there's options there. They're both very good players. They're both very good professionals. The way they're training, the way they're looking after us, themselves, so they'll be ready.
Can you just ask about Ben Godfrey? Because obviously a couple of years ago Everton made a substantial investment in him, and he's had a couple of stuttering seasons maybe after being on the periphery of the England squad. So do you think he's maybe a victim of a couple of managerial changes and positional changes, and how do you get him back to those levels that he did show maybe in his first season?
Yeah, maybe, but he's training very well. I think it's fair to say the 2 centre-halves who have had a good run together with Jarrod and Tarki, they've played very, very well, and I think there is an honesty in football from players, and I think there is from Ben and Keno to look and go, well, they are playing very well, which they are. So therefore, waiting for your chance and then taking it when it comes, but they're 2 very good professionals, and they're looking after themselves, so they'll be ready.
Just another one. You said on when after the game when you brought Lewis Dobbin on, that was close between him and Arnaud Danjuma. Danjuma's only played about 20 minutes in the past 6 games. So how's he looking? And obviously with January coming up, is there a chance he could maybe go back to Villarreal? Is there a break in the loan, or is that something?
Yeah, we see about all of that sort of stuff. As you know, we're carrying a pretty light squad. These are judgment calls. I mentioned afterwards the idea of subs, and people talk about it a lot nowadays. You know, whys and wherefores, when, why don't you make more, why do you make less, or all the rest of it. You're going on the moment in time when you and your staff are looking at a game and going, right, what does this game need? And every footballer has a slight different style, some radically so. And we just felt it was right on this occasion, sorry, to get Lewis on. That doesn't mean the next time it's not Arnie. So, you know, these are judgment calls and they happen very fast. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't.